That's really interesting because I like the concept of near-prem. I like that as a term because I feel
coined
like
right here on this.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead. That's
put a little
super
trademark
useful.
on that. Yeah.
But because it's been interesting because whenever anybody talks about hybrid cloud. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Manhattans Project. I'm Michael Gibson, Marketing Manager here at 10th Magnitude, and I am joined today by David Powell, who is the Vice President of Marketing and Strategic Development at TekLinks.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining. I appreciate you coming in.
Oh, glad to be here.
It's great to have you on the show.
Nice to be on the show.
So, as weird as it is, we actually have David here to talk about something called the Magical Mystery Tour.
Yes.
So we're going a little 60s today, little Sgt. Pepper's. Why don't you walk me through what the Magical Mystery Tour is and what it involves?
Sure. So part of my role at TekLinks is strategic development, and that's kind of product strategy, product roadmap. What do we need to be thinking about? Where do we need to have our eyes on the horizon as to where the industry is headed? Mm-hmm. So from a lot of the events that I've been going to, I've developed some friendships with a lot of different folks, and some of them, began to realize were leaders in their respective spaces, and all their offices were about 3 hours from each other. And so I put together this idea that I'd go visit my 4 friends at these 4 different kind of respective leaders in their individual spaces and do it all at once and knock it out in 1 week and go see everybody and learn about the industry and share ideas and see where things are headed. And the working title around the office just jokingly became David's Magical Mystery Tour. Okay. And so we just stuck with the Magical Mystery Tour. We did a run of t-shirts around the Magical Mystery Tour, and nice. That's what we're calling this whole week, which is really, though, more about understanding the industry and where things are going.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So who is involved in this Magical Mystery Tour?
Sure. So at first, when I looked at it, I saw that you guys here at 10th Magnitude were leaders in the Azure space and in the application development and DevOps space. So I wanted to come see you guys. Then there's a company in Grand Rapids called OST. Okay. And my buddy over there, Mike LaMonaco, and those guys are very similar to TekLinks in that they have recurring revenue practice, but also a VAR business. Mm-hmm. They do a lot of HP, we do a lot of Cisco. And so I wanted to talk to them. And then Apex Digital in Detroit, those guys are a cloud practice. And then IT Weapons in Toronto, my buddy Jeremy McBean over there, those guys do a lot of managed services, which we have as well. So you have kind of managed cloud and VAR and app dev, DevOps all in 1 week. And so those are the 4 companies that I'm going to see.
So what are you taking away? Like, are we your first stop?
Yes, you're the first stop. And
count that as a win.
That's
one for us.
That's a win. It's called Southwest. I had direct flights to Chicago from Birmingham, and then I could go that way.
I don't care. I'm sorry. Yeah,
but
I'm going to put a score counter
you can
right
count
here,
and
it's going to be 10th Magnitude 1. Everyone else
that's right.
0.
First stop. And I think so I think the whole idea was to just get that whole kind of landscape across the whole solution provider deal. Mm-hmm. And for those of you, you don't know really what TekLinks does, but TekLinks has a cloud provider component, and then we have a managed services component, then we have a VAR practice. So we have kind of the 3 legs, but the leg that we're really missing to a large degree is application development, DevOps space. And I think that as you begin to see the industry transform and shift that direction, this idea that you cannot play in that space is becoming difficult, right? Is that you're going to have that kind of knowledge. As infrastructure becomes code, and as all that becomes in play, people like us are going to have to be able to do that. So you guys actually make a great first stop, awesome. On the tour, because really this is the kind of the gap in our offering right now, and this is something you guys excel at.
Cool. Can you walk me through a little bit what TekLinks does with those other two
Sure.
legs? Like how do you guys operate? Where are you positioned in sort of the cloud and cloud services field?
Sure. So the big challenge, I think, in our space was to build that recurring revenue practice. And so for us, we grew up selling Cisco, EMC, VMware, Microsoft, and Citrix. And then about 7 years ago, we really made a concerted effort to grow the recurring revenue side. The recurring revenue side is really what helps drive the valuation of the business, and is in alignment with the way that the customers want to consume now. People want to buy on a subscription basis, and they want to lease it instead of own it, kind of thing. So we had 2 data centers, and now we have 3 data centers that we own and operate. And then we've grown our recurring revenue practice over 10 times in the past 7 years. So it's grown a lot. and now is
That's
roughly
huge. Well
40,
done.
40% of our revenue now, roughly. So, it's been a tremendous, shift for us. But a lot of that's just in alignment with the way the customers want to buy things. So whether it's offsite online backups or hosted desktops, or even there for a while we were making a lot of hay with hosted email. Now we're working on Office 365. So you have all these types of things where people want to just buy as a use in a consumption-based model. And so we've just grown that part, and we've done it without cannibalizing our solution provider practice, our resale business.
So you're sort of like a cloud services MSP, roughly?
Yes, so we're a
If I were to
CSP,
draw an analogous
MSP, and then just a straight up solution provider. Yeah, so we've kind of got those three. So there's not a lot of folks like us in the space, but we're always trying to keep our eye down the field, right? What can we do next? And applications certainly seem to be a spot for that.
What are you hoping to take away from your Magical Mystery Tour? So obviously here it's going to be sort of that application development, the infrastructure as code piece. What are you looking to get from the other folks?
Yeah.
So in theory, if I were to put this up tonight, which I won't, and the folks you're going to meet with could watch it, like what could they prep for?
Yeah, so like Mark Twain had a great quote, which I love. It said, "Good writers borrow, great writers steal." Right? And so the idea would be is like, what's working for somebody else? And I think that lots of times we spend a lot of time kind of guessing. What does the customer want? Or what are other people in the industry doing that's working? And a better approach to that, instead of guessing at the answer to the test, just go and find out what the answer to the test is. So go talk to your customers. Hey, what is it you want to buy? What is it? What are your needs? What is it that you're seeing or looking for that we can offer down the road? Same thing with other, people like us, is go out and talk to Alex and say, hey, what's working for y'all? What are y'all seeing? Where's the industry going? And, cheat to some degree. Just find out where it's actually going instead of guessing and, putting your thumb up and hoping to read the wind. Go talk to people and find out what's going. And a lot of that's based on relationships. And you also have to have the openness to talk about what's working for you. But ultimately, I'm a rising tide lifts all ships kind of guy. So if TekLinks gets better, then the solution provider community gets better, and then the vendor community gets better, and the whole thing gets better. If 10th Magnitude gets better because of something I told Alex, then great. Then that we all succeed. And so I think the more that we can share and knowledge share and make everybody a little bit better, the better it is for the entire industry.
Is there anything you guys are fairly certain on, but you think still has some room for improvement?
Yeah, I think the stuff that you see kind of like over the horizon, and Alex was talking about this earlier, and this seems to be a trend that you guys are seeing too, coming from a different perspective, is around this rapid centralization, which, right, everything's going to the cloud, right? But then what you're seeing is this kind of decentralization to meet certain use cases. So I think everybody kind of ran to the cloud and realized this isn't the right answer for everything. It's the right answer for lots of things, but there may be like high data transfer rates or massive amounts of storage that you have, or compliance or security or something like that. So what you're really seeing is this massive centralization and then a little bit of decentralization out. So really like a big massive data center, your Azure or Amazon, something like that, and then a whole bunch of like little micro data centers that you have, which is really that hyper-converged story. So your SimpliVities and your Nutanix that are telling that hyper-converged story, which is just really tight box of compute that you can drop whatever on. You guys are seeing that from the Azure Stack standpoint. Can I extend Azure out to the customer and keep it back here? And we're seeing that from an infrastructure side on the hyper-converged side, which is like a bunch of your services are going to the cloud, and then because we have compliance or whatever needs, and we want to push a little bit back of this out into a micro data center closer to the end user or closer to the environment. So that kind of centralization and then decentralization is something that I think you're beginning to see. So the old days of client server, now you can kind of say it's public cloud and a little stack of something out here. So,
but it sounds what you're saying almost sounds like hybrid cloud adjacent. It's not quite hybrid cloud because you're not talking about putting stuff back on prem. You're not talking about putting stuff back in a company's data center. You're talking about making specific localized clusters serving multiple customers or multiple customer needs?
Probably single customer needs.
Okay.
So I think, someone who's really got this pitch down pretty well right now to a large degree is Equinix, which is they're talking about, we want to cut the latency out of the public cloud, right? So put your stuff in Azure, put your stuff in Amazon, and then put a small micro data center inside our POP, if you will. And then we have connectivity that can private route that, cut latency out but still give you, the kind of accessibility or security or whatever it is that you need for your particular use case. So you're right, it's not going back on premises, but it's going near premises, right? So it's going close to the customer premises. So maybe you could have several geographies attached into one kind of micro data center, but then all that's back-ended by the core services, Active Directory and all this kind of stuff back in the large public cloud. So this is a very early kind of trend, but you're beginning to see this evolve with hyperconverged at the edge, or Azure Stack, something like that at the edge, and then a lot of core stuff in the public cloud.
That's really interesting, because I like the concept of near-prem. I like that as a term, because I feel
coined
like...
right here on this.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead. That's
put a little trademark on that,
But because it's been interesting, because whenever anybody talks about hybrid cloud that I've seen, now keep in mind, I've not seen everything everybody's talked about, so I welcome people to correct me if I'm wrong. But from what I have seen, when people discuss hybrid cloud, they're talking about, we're going to keep our in-house or the applications in-house data, or the applications we're specifically worried about, the specific security issue or a load issue, we're going to keep those on-prem in our own servers, in our own data center. And then everything else is going to be out on the cloud. You're talking about what is still a hybrid cloud scenario, but it's eliminating that footprint in somebody's office. You're still making it so they don't have to handle all those things in-house with their own resources and their own technologies and their own people with their own space. And I think that is a huge gap that you're talking about bridging. Like, that is sort of a best of both worlds scenario, especially if somebody's concerned about going fully public cloud. I mean, that's still a daunting idea for a lot of organizations and a lot of people.
Right. Well, a couple weeks ago, I heard an IDC researcher speak, and he was talking about this, and that what he said they're beginning to see is that people aren't replacing the on-premises stuff. That they're just, as that sunsets, they're moving that to this maybe hyper-converged micro data center thing with the core services sitting in the public cloud. So to your point, it's more of a migration than this kind of lift and shift type of thing that we've seen before, which is like, okay, we've talked about tiered storage, right? So does everything need to be on Flash? Absolutely not. Does everything need to be on SAS or SATA or whatever? You want to tier that out based on what the use case is. Now I think people are beginning to look at their data centers similarly, which is like, based on the service or based on the application that we have, what's the best place for this thing to live? Okay. Should it live in the public cloud because it's just Active Directory or file sharing or whatever? Or does it need to live in a controlled, secure data center that we don't have to manage, but we can put it inside this little small micro data center block, and now we can control that and meet our security parameters around that, or data change rate or whatever it may be around that. So now we're thinking about, how do we tier these bigger chunks as opposed to just tiering inside like our SAN or our tiered storage out on the cloud.
Okay, so what are you looking to get from the other stops? Like, so infrastructure as code, application development comes from here. What are you looking to pick up from IT weapons?
Yeah, so from IT weapons is really kind of on the managed services side around, how do they optimize and how do they scale? Because I think, that's a struggle in every company that does managed services is, if you're our best guy, we struggle. Yeah, that's right. We struggle to scale beyond you, right? So you're our best tier 3 engineer. You're our best implementations guy. You're our best pre-sales guy. You're our best at all of these things. And so your typical managed services provider struggles to scale because we reach the point to where we can't scale you, right? So now you maybe, if we pull you off of implementations and put you on tier 3 support, now our onboarding of new revenue goes dry because you can't do implementations. Okay. Or we put you on implementations in tier 3 support, and now you're not doing pre-sales, and our sales funnel, dries up. So we can't scale beyond you. So the big trend in the managed services space is, how do you move from people to processes, right? So you used to deliver results for us, and now we used to sell you. Is that you can feel good because you're going to come in, Mr. Customer, and make this thing happen. Now we need to deliver the process is going to yield the results, right? So we now can take the bakery that you ran and made these great things and franchise that out. Okay. And the chocolate cake's going to be the same at every bakery, not because you're not a great chef, but because you recipeed that whole thing out, and now we can reproduce that in other locations. And that's really, in the MSP space, is all about scale. Is how do you scale your help desk? How do you scale this delivery model beyond just the people, and you keep running these choke points. And so then how do you build a process that's reproducible, that you can plug and play individuals into that, not diminishing the importance of the people. You still need quality people to deliver that, but you depend now on the process instead of the individual and the hero effort to deliver those results.
I know it's still very early in your tour, as it were. But is there anything that you're already seeing as you've been in communication with people before you get there, in your discussions with Alex here today? Is there anything you're already seeing coming down the line that you're trying to prep for? Not necessarily that you're going to shift with what you're already doing, like as you patch in these solutions from other organizations. But are there any trends or communications you're seeing customers saying, I've heard about this as a long-term thing. Maybe it was IoT, but now it's machine learning, or they're talking about working in in intelligent systems, predictive analytics and systems. Are you seeing something shifting?
I think what we're seeing is a skills gap. So for us, and that's what I'm interested in, and talking to Alex today, there's some interesting parts around that, but to explain this skills gap, I think from our standpoint, is that if you flash back 20 years, you had your PBX guys, right? The guys that had the butt set, and they would go and punch down your PBX, your old phone system, right? And so you had the PBX guys, and then your route and switch guys up here, and then voice over IP came out. And voice over IP, the PBX guys were like, well, now I have to learn all this new stuff to do this. And the route and switch guys were like, well, these are just ones and zeros running on my network. I can do that. So they grabbed voice over IP, and the PBX guys kind of went away. So now you flash forward to now, and you have infrastructure as code in the middle. You have our route and switch guys here beneath that, and your application guys up top. Your application guys just say, well, infrastructure as code, that's just code. Why? I can do that. And my guys look at that and say, well, there's a skills gap. I need to learn some basic code to be able to embrace that. But what's encouraging today is listening to Alex, and he was talking about kind of the profile for like an Azure cloud solutions architect, consultant, whatever that looks like, is somebody who has to know the infrastructure, right? Is that you kind of come at it from two different ways. So you can't divorce the infrastructure from the application. Mm-hmm. But if you just know the application, don't know the infrastructure, that's not enough. And if you just know the infrastructure without the application, that's not enough. And there's such a dearth in the market of talent that knows both. Everybody's going to have to learn something, right? So the application guys have to learn the infrastructure piece, the infrastructure guys have to learn the application piece. So some of our guys, I think maybe the gap's not as big as I thought it was, because everybody's got to learn something, as opposed to these guys are already there and already know this piece. So the really kind of the consultant you want around the cloud is somebody that understands application and knows how the infrastructure serves the application, that you can't disaggregate those two and set them far apart, that those two things are inextricably tied. So infrastructure and applications go together. And so the talent then, we have one side, and the application guys tend to have the other side, and we somehow need to train both of these guys up so that they understand the whole piece, because now in the DevOps world, you can't dissociate the infrastructure from the application. Those two have to go together. So I think the skills gap is something I'm aware of and we're trying to pay attention to. And that's the discussion I have with Alex today. I'll have with Mike tomorrow and continue to have this week on the tour.
Do you have clients already that you think would, you don't have to speak to them specifically, but do you have clients already that you think would be excited about that CI/CD, fail quickly, repair quickly, deploy again, continuously implement methodology? Like, do you have anyone you're working with that would be like, yeah, this fits us better, like this is who we are?
Yeah, I think if you engage them, I think if you involve them, and the few times that we've done that's been very effective, mm-hmm. which is like, you engage, again, back to cheat, right? Ask them, what is it you want? Yeah. And then if I had a focus group and I said, hey, Michael, what is it that you're looking for? And you said, I'm looking for this. Well, then when I come out with this, you're obviously the first person I should go to. It's like, hey, man, we took your feedback. Here's this that mm-hmm. you asked for. Oh, well, that's cool. Now it's in beta, so it's going to be a little buggy. You cool with trying that? Well, yeah. As opposed to, we did this deal. We did this deal with like mobile device management, and everybody said mobile device management was like the hottest thing, and we bulletproofed this thing and created the SLA and all that stuff. We took it to market. Nobody wanted to buy it. Everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm concerned about mobile device management. And we'd slide a price across the table and go, ooh, I'm not that concerned, about it. And if we had done just a little bit of research up front, I think we could have ascertained that, earlier. So I think the answer for us, just like, DevOps tries to bring the operational group and the development group together, what we found is that we've let our technicians, our technical guys create products, and they had gold-plated products that nobody wanted. And then our sales team, we've tried the other way and let the sales team create products, and they created stuff that they could sell but you couldn't support, right? And I think the real answer is the marriage of those two groups together, but with a little bit more of a agile type of mentality, like, hey, we're going to release, and if it breaks, that's okay. But we also need to let the customer know that this is not an SLA kind of driven thing, and figure it out that way. Only other thing,
any other topics you wanted to?
not technical, but there's a topic that I love to talk about that's fascinating to me.
Okay, what's that?
All right, ready? So here is, since I'm from Alabama, I'll give you the tried and true.
I'll forgive you for that.
That's right, tried and true way to tell if someone is from the South or from the North. Okay?
Okay.
Ready? It's whether barbecue is a noun or a verb. Okay, so if you're in the South, barbecue is a noun, right? For pulled pork, or if you're in Texas, brisket, something like that. In the North, barbecue means cooking outside. Right, that's a verb for just cooking outdoors. So
I use them interchangeably because I learned how to cook.
That's heresy.
I learned how to cook ribs in Tennessee, which is about as close as you can
Okay,
get
so
to
that's a noun.
the two.
That's a noun. And now when you're up here, if you have them over for a barbecue for serving hamburger and hot dogs, you're just cooking outside.
I just call it grilling.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. But if you say you're having a barbecue and you've got hamburgers and hot dogs and not ribs.
If I'm having a barbecue, I've got ribs and brisket and pulled pork.
Okay, amen, brother. So you're a noun. You're a noun guy.
Okay.
So that is a noun.
Well, I am from Michigan, which is called the southern state of the North.
Okay.
At least when I was there.
So if barbecue's a noun, then you get to be qualified as a southerner. But if barbecue is a verb for cooking outside, then I'm sorry, you don't get to claim that.
All right, so I'm going to go on record because I have the microphone and I'm allowed to do that.
Barbecue's a noun.
The official position of 10th magnitude that barbecue is a noun.
Perfect.
So we've answered that question.
Although I heard Alex earlier say you have barbecues on the barbecues on the roof of this building. And unless you have like ribs and brisket upstairs, you have grills.
Well, Alex is not the one on camera representing 10th magnitude views right now.
So are you going to modify the employee policies today to reflect that this is, from this
it'll
point
be
here
on
to
website,
forward,
it'll be on
barbecue is a
onboarding
noun
documents.
at 10th magnitude?
Absolutely.
Okay, I feel like we have changed 10th magnitude for the better just on that.
Magical Mystery Tour doing so much good already.
That's right.
Thank you for coming and joining me, David.
Hey, thank you. Enjoy it.
If you want to get in contact with David, I will put the contact information for TekLinks and David, if you would like us to, in the video description below. As always, if you'd like to stay up to date on all of our latest content, you can like, comment, or subscribe on this video. You can also subscribe to our RSS feed. Or if you would like to be a guest on this show, like David, feel free to reach out to us, info@10thmagnitude.com, or via our Twitter handle @10th magnitude, and you'll get in touch with me. I would love to have you on the show. I would love to talk about your opinions on barbecue. Is it a noun or a verb? And we'll fight about it right here on the Manhattan's Project. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.